It was not to say that Luo Fei was very strong. A small advantage in such a duel was meaningless, but such suppression demonstrated one thing. Luo Fei was actually a person of such skill. How many people present would be able to move their lower body while fighting head-on and exert strength at the same time? Luo Fei was not dumb. Having already kicked Mars away, he could feel the opponent's resistance. This was the strongest opponent he had ever met, so he had to gamble with his life. The Hercules was not even the slightest bit overstuffed or clumsy. Under Luo Fei's frightening control, he chased at high speeds. Fatty was, after all, a scout since birth, so his knife skills were extremely vicious. Having him in the cockpit, it would be easy for him to hit the target. As everyone thought that Mars would continue to push forward, the Conqueror's engine roared. With a forceful pull of tension, he abruptly counterattacked. His titanium blade slashed into the Hercules, titanium blade, and at the same time, a punch rushed towards the Hercules. Boom! The Hercules sealed up Mars' attack. Boom! 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 In an instant, the two mecha consecutively delivered 3 lower body attacks. They were locked together and neither of them were compromising. The titanium blades slashed apart abruptly, creating a chain of sparks. Mars had made the first move. It was yet again that type of move nearing craziness, an unexplainable violent wind blade move which could easily destroy any rotten matter. Boom boom boom. Such an explosive and aggressive blade technique would completely cut off any chance of escaping death. It consisted of very simple vertical hacks, but it was unimaginably fast and vicious. Yet Fatty was defending fastidiously. The titanium blade was thoroughly sealed off. Every slash was blocked off and the mech's core remained unshifted. When Mars dealt out over 20 slashes, the Hercules slipped through a small opening. Leaning landslide. Zhongshan and the rest had their mouths wide open. This darn person, how did he do this? His ability to grasp the correct timing was amazing. It looked as if Mars' blade had hacked down swiftly, but during that stop to catch his breath, his speed had slowed down slightly. At the same time, as the Hercules charged towards him, regardless of whether Mars could hack down on him accurately or not, it would have been basically ineffective as the momentary explosiveness of the leaning landslide had been more stunning. Mars' reaction was of godlike speed. His left arm suddenly blocked it off horizontally, boom. The mech was roughly pushed away into the distance. Luo Fei, who had executed the leaning landslide, had not done a head-on attack. Instead, he had conveniently performed a ground roll blade move, slashing towards the Conqueror's thigh area. The lower body was far harder to defend than the upper mid-body. Shing! The Conqueror's titanium blade suddenly pierced downwards, a sealing blade move. The tip of the blade was obstructed by the tip of Luo Fei's blade, producing an explosive blare. This was an extremely profound change, allowing Mars to escape a calamity. The distance between the mecha opened up. Both of them adjusted their breath as Mars had just carried out a round of continuous attacks, while the explosiveness of strength had consumed a huge amount of Fatty's strength. Every team below was completely speechless. Wasn't this Fatty just a mascot? This damn fellow was actually an equal of Mars. It could be seen from this match that regardless of strength, speed, battle tactics, and related experience, this Fatty was not the least bit inferior. Lear's teeth grinded slightly. He knew it was not the moment to be happy yet, but this fellow sure could really endure. Lear had felt that he himself had very good endurance, but up against Fatty's wretchedness, he definitely paled in comparison. Zhou Yun's and the other two's complexions were pale white. This was the trash that they had excluded. If Luo Fei was trash, then what were they? After warming up, Mars had verified his conjecture, but it only meant that it was worth it for him to show his real skills. The energy from the heavenly overlord attack flowed through his entire body and a layer of silver radiance appeared on the titanium blade aura. However, the difference was that for Earth-rank warriors, they combined their inner and outer strength to form a presence that held actual killing power. What was contained internally made the titanium blade incomparably durable. But the heaven and earth strength that Mars attracted made the killing aura even more distinct. It was similar to a laser effect, but even more petrifying. As such, the radiance was extremely pure and extremely eye-catching. Mars had grown as well. Very few people present would have been able to execute such control. The Hercules moved slightly, leaning forward faintly. And with a banging sound, a silver radiance floated to the surface, enveloping the mech, extending smoothly into the body of the blade. Blade aura. Had Luo Fei also entered Earth rank? This was unfortunately a similar doubt that everyone familiar with him had. Kill. Kill. Boom. The two mecha advanced abruptly at the same time, and the titanium blades hacked down head-on. Boom. 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 The blade aura radiated all around, dispersing in all directions like a laser. The surroundings were in an uproar. The buildings had been pierced with many holes by the sputtering blade aura as if they were tofu. Fatty clenched his teeth. This damned fellow was very aggressive and powerful, but he had to win. He had no other choice. This was the opportunity that he had to grasp. If not, he could only die. No, if boss did not want him, it would be even scarier than death. Since the day that Lear had beaten down those gangsters and picked him up, he had stopped knowing how to survive without Lear. Hence, no one would obstruct him. The titanium blade frantically attacked. Everyone who knew Luo Fei was stupefied. Was this the shameless scout? Luo Fei had once earned the title of the best scout. The reviews were that he was shameless enough that he fully understood the essence of a scout. However, the Luo Fei in front of their eyes now was on a mad hacking attack, completely on offense against Mars. The two of them were fighting with their lives, blade against blade. With such battle strength, neither of them could defend against each other's blade. At the time, there would be no use for a defense, they would have to go full-on offensive. The uproar in the Milky Way Alliance's military schools during the Wang Zheng and Mars battle had been due to the fact that they had displayed the most epic opposing attacks. No one had imagined that Elite Academy X had hidden many talented figures, but now another one had appeared. Zhang Shan was stunned. This damned fatty's martial technique was far above his. This damn fatty was already that skillful with a fusion of spirit and fighting skills and a blade aura that he had wanted even in his dreams. It has to be known that if the capabilities were not there, their vital energy would have dissipated after a few confrontations. However, Mars and Luo Fei had already gone head-to-head with over 50 slashes, but their vital energy had not even weakened. Instead, it actually was climbing. Boom! A blade aura broke through the air. Wind-breaking beheader. Luo Fei had made the first move. Mars Conqueror slanted his body to make way for the blade instantly, using the smallest movement to avoid the attack to prepare for the counterattack. It was not that Mars was a coward, but his ferocious attacks relied on valiant steps as the foundation. As such, by allowing his opponent to attack, he could attain an unbreakable effect easily at the same time. With a sideways movement, a disguise, and in a tiny, fragmented pace, the Conqueror's titanium blade chopped down. Warping beheader. The problem, however, was that if Luo Fei had slipped first, Mars would be able to pressure his movements. Firstly, a blade moved to prevent the Hercules from moving and then the warping beheader. It would have been the ultimate peak to the pinnacle. Once Luo Fei had made his move and the warping beheader had been executed, he would have nowhere to hide unless he teleported. The Hercules' left arm suddenly drew a circle. Whoom! Boom! The blade aura was blocked off by a silver vapor wall, and burst. Fatty rapidly retreated, panting heavily. There was not a single sound coming from the venue. What the heck was that technique? Only a small handful of people who had read through ancient martial arts or high-level fighting skills knew that exerting out vital energy was the most energy-consuming thing, and defending was even more energy-consuming than attacking. It was a higher level to externally exert and save oneself in terms of defense. The sudden exerted vapor shield had blocked off the blade aura. This fella's fighting skills were powerful to the point that it raised people's hairs. At the very least, Mars did not know this move, and neither did Wang Zheng. Both of them were the same type. They focused on defense. However, Fatty was different. He was scared of dying, and as such, all the moves that could help protect his life, he was able to pick them up once he saw them, and even if he didn't, he could figure it out on his own. The Ares art was basically an infinite resource for him to achieve protection of his life. It was just that this time, Luo Fei was still at a slight disadvantage. His vital energy was slightly more hurried and brief in comparison to Mars. However, this fella's toughness was beyond imagination. It was impossible to imagine how he had been able to accumulate so much fat even after cultivating to such levels. Mars felt a bit regretful. This fella was a natural. Even Mars felt a bit jealous that such a lazy person could reach such levels. But his weak points were obvious. The pinnacle of a warrior was in the offense, but this fatty unexpectedly used so much energy on being wretched and defending. The best way to secure one's life was to finish off the enemy. Shing, shing, shing. Instantly, 3 blades slashed towards Luo Fei. Once the blade aura appeared, the heavens fell and the earth rend. Luo Fei could not retreat. This could not be blocked off, so at the same time, 3 blades struck outwards. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The blade aura burst open. This sort of martial technique that was delivered through fighting skills and fused with natural strength was already the ultimate ability of an ex-warrior. To be able to fight to such an extent, Luo Fei was undeniably an Earth rank warrior. Only Earth rank warriors, mature Earth rank warriors, had such degrees of integration and were at such levels. At this moment, everyone had mixed feelings in their hearts, even complaining that God was not fair, that such a person could cultivate to Earth rank. Di Maria felt as if he was eating sh*t. It was not just about Luo Fei's ability, but also his own judgment abilities. He had always felt that Lin Feng and he were not that far off and both were aristocrats. Based on what grounds was Lin Feng so highly valued? Now he knew. At this moment, Lin Feng gently shook his head instead. What a pity. He could feel the dangerous aspect of this fatty. It was not that he was scared of this fatty, but that knowing that he was not a small fry, he should be treated as an important opponent. But from the looks of it, this fatty rarely had any chances of being the main fighter. It has to be known that as a leader and as the main force, gaining experience was correlated with the battling method. This fatty was surely always the scout and rarely had to face strong opposition, and this would put him at a disadvantage psychologically. The most important part was that the rhythm had been taken over by Mars, so it was only a matter of time before the defeat. As expected, in the battle arena, the Conqueror was forcing the Hercules to confront him head-on. This was Mars' rhythm and not Luo Fei's. It seemed dangerous, but Mars had experienced such battles many a times. However, for Luo Fei, rumble, rumble, rumble. In an instant, it was another confrontation of over 10 blades. The blade auras were on a rampage and the surroundings were in an uproar. Pieces of stone filled the entire sky, but it seemed to not affect the two of them the slightest. Having insight on the surroundings was one of the basics of an Earth rank warrior. Yet up till now, the two of them had yet to use their ability X's, they have not even tried it. Actually, as people get closer to this rank, they would become more aware that they should not be doing trivial stuff alongside ability X, as they could immediately wipe out their own consciousness, making their small tricks useless. Only in critical moments, when they were fighting for their lives, would they use it, and once they used it, they would be able to determine the outcome of the battle. It was obvious that Luo Fei would counterattack. He would not make the first move and neither would he be suitable to. He was waiting for Mars, allowing Mars to seize the decisive opportunity. Appearing weak and moving stealthily was Luo Fei's strength, but there was no use in being able to move stealthily. At Mars level, he would definitely be able to detect him. Such an ability only becomes more useless as the level increases. It was similar to the simple magic which could be easily seen through by people with tough psychological strength, while the weak, practically speaking, aside from whether it was useful or not, it would be a struggle whilst at death's door. Which meant that Fatty's ability X was trash to an absolute point. FCK, Fatty will be in danger if this goes on. Zhang Shan bit his finger. This was no longer time to fight with Lear, he was definitely standing on Fatty's side. Anyways, even if Fatty won, there would be no difference. Wang Zheng shook his head ever so slightly. He was the clearest on this. Luo Fei was still not in that element yet. It was probably because that state was not something that could be controlled easily. And at this point in time, the balance and deadlock on the arena had been broken. Mars suddenly executed the mad scamper steps, disrupting the flow. A blade chopped downwards towards the Hercules' left arm. Luo Fei did not hide. The blade came too quickly, too unnaturally, there was no time to defend even. Bang! His left arm fell to the ground and the Hercules emitted chains of sparks. Almost immediately, Fatty's whole body was drenched thoroughly. A suffocating fear came through. If he lost, the Dynasty battle team would be finished. Upon thinking of Lear's look, it would be like the end of the world for Luo Fei. Mars adjusted his breathing. Another round of attack and this would end. This Luo Fei was not bad, it was just a pity that he was too soft and immature. With his left arm gone, it meant that the defense Luo Fei specialized in was also gone. The key part was that it also largely affected the mech's balance. Mecha were like the human body, the arms were not the important part, but if the opposition was overly intense, it could cause a chain reaction. The breakdown had begun. Mars did not want new issues to continuously arise. Thus, almost right after his attack, he immediately followed up. The titanium blade was raised in an instant. All of a sudden, the hunch for signs of danger that he had formed over many years suddenly emerged in his mind. The conqueror retreated rapidly. Everyone was in a daze. This situation clearly could have been easily solved with just one slash, but why had Mars retreated instead, and furthermore at such rapid speeds? The complexion of Mars at present was slightly pale, as if he had just visited and came back from hell. Luo Fei's pupils gradually turned devilish red. They were so bright that they would make people's hearts palpitate. There was nothing scarier in this world than Lear abandoning him. That shudder that originated from his bones caused the other spirit inside of Luo Fei to awaken. This was perhaps the Luo Fei that Lear needed. His ability X exploded through. The devilish, silverish red color was strange. Generally, ability X would usually burst forth in a needle shape, but the aura around the Hercules, it seemed, soft and flabby. But even if it was soft and flabby, why did it emit a sense of dread? From the outside, it felt very weak, but for Mars, who was immersed in the battle, it was an entirely different feeling. The Hercules, who was missing an arm, threw away the titanium blade and picked up the shovel. Just like that, he towed the shovel along, moving step by step closer to Mars. Just as the distance between the two closed in by about 10 meters, the silverish red aura could be seen by the naked eye, abruptly pouncing on Mars' aura, eating it up in big mouthfuls. Luo Fei's Earth rank ability X was eating. Mars could feel his spiritual energy lapsing, and as the distance between the two of them shortened, the speed of the lapse became even faster. The other person could actually give out a life-like joyful gobbling. At this rate, his spiritual energy would be completely cut off from its connection with nature. Mars could also be considered someone who had an abundance of experience. He reacted in an instant. Kill. A berserk energy suddenly exploded out with a bang. Mars had activated his mad mode, invincibility. The conqueror advanced abruptly with mad scamper, charging towards Luo Fei instantly. However, everyone could see it. The Hercules' vital energy was still gulping in huge bites. Mars' decision was the right one. He had to take down the Hercules in a spurt of energy. Under the present circumstances, Mars still held the absolute advantage like before. Boom! The titanium blade had chopped upon the shovel, causing an explosive ring. Luo Fei had, of course, not known the rotating shovel, but Luo Fei's weak ability enveloped Mars within a moment. The conqueror seemed to have paused for a second, before raining down on the Hercules. However, what everyone saw instead, was that this blade speed was not even the least bit insane. The Hercules did not retreat by even one step, forcibly blocking off all of Mars' attacks. At the same time, every time Mars attacked, his strength was being eaten away. Not only that, what others could not see was that with every contact, Mars felt a part of his spiritual energy being sucked away. He had never heard of such a strange occurrence. For the first time, time passed ever so slowly. Only Olivius knew that other people would have no solution against Mars' ability X upon entering that state. Mars would be in a state of near-perfect defense. Unless it was a weapon with strength beyond a mech, such as of a battleship level, they would absolutely not be able to break through. At the same time, he would also be immune to a certain level of obstruction of ability X. This was actually the result of a strong mental control. In practicality, some ability X's were still effective. The corner of the current Luo Fei's lips held a hint of a strange smile. Luo Fei's weak ability was visibly beyond that of an average person's. It was simply like poison within the bones. Mars' most aggressive moments had passed, but Luo Fei's weak ability continued to last, the devilish redness wrapped around the conqueror. Ping! The Hercules shovel begun to show its strength, mindlessly tapping violently, and Mars was beginning to be suppressed. The most critical part was that the other party was currently eating his strength in big mouthfuls. This was not an elimination or suppression, he was actually eating. It was as if a part of your body was being eaten away, largely distracting Mars' attention. Luo Fei's Aries arts had already turned towards the pinnacle, he was eating while replenishing his energy, and his strength flourished even more. On the other hand, Mars was going down a slope. After Mars' Heavenly Overlord attack had matured, it was his first time encountering such a situation, he was falling into the fatty's trap step by step. With Wang Zheng, that battle was really satisfying. It was a pleasant tyrannical rivalry, with a debt of gratitude coupled with duty to avenge. However, this match with Luo Fei left him in despair. Boom! The conqueror was beaten down by the shovel. By this time, Luo Fei's silverish red, devilish aura had enveloped Mars thoroughly like how a spider web caught prey, and was taking huge bites at Mars' externally emitted spiritual strength, directly cutting off Mars' connection with the surroundings. At the same time, with every contact, the Heavenly Overlord attack's vital energy was being eaten away a bit. Mars' weakening and Luo Fei's flourishing speed was the same. Luo Fei was already getting more and more excited. Shing! 2 hits from the shovel had broken down the conqueror's energy shield. Mars' last defense had been broken. Even the portable equipment that had yet to been used had been pulverized, and in reality, nothing could be changed. All of the Arbiter people were flabbergasted. This was stranger than the match between Wang Zheng and Mars. What was this ability? Was it the devil? Luo Fei let out a laugh. He was not the usual Luo Fei. This was a version molded by Lear. What Lear needed was victory, and not just victory for this round, but an overall victory, which meant that Mars could not be in the team battle. As such, Luo Fei could not allow Mars to admit defeat, neither could he let the battle end. What he needed was... Boom! A shovel hit onto the mech's cockpit, but it did not crack. What Luo Fei had used was his inner shock strength, which would produce the same results as Olivia's exploding concussion, just with a different method. It was just that this was not an ability X, but a fighting technique, double energy. Boom! Within the cabin, Mars shook tremendously. He was just a human, and not a mortal, but he still held on as the second shovel strike rained down. Every battle system that Aslan had used was of the highest grade and also the closest to reality. The mecha used to combat were all real, combined with a virtual battle arena, and in addition, a surrounding protection system. It could ensure that no fatal attacks would occur. However, the problem was that Luo Fei's attacks were not considered fatal as the mech cabin was not entirely destroyed. All he wanted was for Mars to be seriously injured. When the third shovel strike slashed downwards, everyone was able to see it. The formidable Mars, as if being held by the neck by a devil, was completely unable to move. His spiritual power had been largely sucked away and his ability X had completely disappeared. The Heavenly Overlord attack that he relied on had also been eaten away and dispersed. The honor of Arbiter, boom, vanished like smoke in thin air. The blood in Mars' chest could no longer take it, and it spurted all over the cabin, dyeing it red in an instant. Fatty's shovel rose up high. Seeing fresh blood greatly stimulated him. Kill! 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 The entire audience was deadly still. Such skills, such strength control, and this ability X, was he even a human? Luo Fei's entire mind was filled in red and endless killing intent. If Lear wanted him to kill, he would kill. He never wanted to be abandoned again, he did not want to be a useless piece of trash. The Hercules raised its shovel again. At this moment, Mars had already lost the strength to admit defeat, and even if he still had energy, he would not admit defeat, even if he had to die. And with Luo Fei's level and ability, he could really take Mars' life before the system could even react. Brother, are you a warrior? You are really great, brother. In the future, I also want to be a warrior. The younger brother's eyes were full of pure worship. Follow your benefactor well, do not create any trouble. Luo Fei, you fatty. Even if you follow Lear, you can still make friends with us. Somewhere deep inside of Luo Fei, he was having an internal struggle, but the moment he heard Lear, the last hesitation he had vanished. Boom! Luo Fei's shovel slammed down. Emergency signals appeared on the system and both mecha were halted, a hair's breadth before the last moment. Aslan's system was still the most awesome. It was able to stop everything at the most critical moment based on the 1 out of tens of thousands of judgments. But the shovel had still slammed down. Mars had already lost consciousness, his body heavily sprung up, crashing against the cabin door. To Luo Fei, human nature was not important. From the start to the end, he had not learned to resist it. The first aid personnel had rushed in. Seeing Mars' condition, everyone was stunned. He had multiple fractures and even broken bones all around his body. It was too terrible to witness. If it had been an ordinary person in his place, they would have died. If not for the last-second halt from the system choosing the safest first judgment, Mars would have really died. The noisiness caused the redness in Luo Fei's eyes to gradually regress. His aura dissipated as well when a working personnel, who had accidentally come close to the mech, fainted. Luo Fei slowly awakened and walked out of the mech. When he came out, everyone's eyes were on him, filled with awe. Luo Fei was not too sure of what he had done, but he had a general idea. He had felt that it was not his doing. Every time he was in that state, he would always feel that way. The Arbiter people's eyes were filled with killing intent, but there was no use. It was just the anguished wails of the weak. Mars had also destroyed many people the same way. Distinct battle tactics and frightening abilities. From his fighting skills to his spiritual powers, completely destroying Mars. For Mars to meet Luo Fei, who had such abilities, it was really despairing. Luo Fei choosing the Hercules from the start was for the sake of beating Mars half to death. Alloy shovels were the easiest tools to cause concussions with, which would cause Mars to be unable to enter battle. It was just that he had never expected that in that state, he would nearly have killed Mars off. Lear stood up, his facial expression as calm as usual. Fatty immediately hopped over like a rabbit. "Boss, I was wrong, I dare not do it in the future." The entire arena had heard it clearly as Fatty was shivering, seemingly very, extremely scared. "Prepare for the team battle," Lear announced. His heart and his vision had rapidly developed following this battle. Luo Fei nodded with all his life. In comparison with Mars' state, he seemed like he had no issues. This was what made everyone's hearts cold. What exactly was hidden underneath that fluffy pile of flesh? Luo Fei sat on the seat right next to Lear. Zhou Yu and the other two consciously all sat up straight, fully concentrated. They really had been blinded to facts and did not know what kind of a person they were insulting. Which such fighting skills cultivated into spiritual energy, killing them would be like crushing a cockroach to Luo Fei. Zhang Shan was also inebriate. Luo Fei was actually so aggressive, what would he have to be scared of? Just a noob like Lear, just beat him to death. Wang Zheng and the rest were all very calm, only their eyes had revealed slight restrained fear. Although it was just a conjecture, they had never expected that it would be of such strength. From the start, Luo Fei had already known how to deal with Mars, who had displayed his abilities multiple times and already had no secret abilities hidden. As such, he would inevitably finish him. Some abilities were not easy to counter. But their weaknesses would always be detected by others of the same rank upon repeated executions, and Mars' weakness had been thoroughly exposed. Since it was not possible to attack him, his offenses just need to be lowered. Once the period of perfect defense was over, there would be nothing to fear about Mars. Wang Zheng had chosen firm resistance, whilst Luo Fei had chosen to weaken the opponent. The difficulty level was, without doubt, not any lesser. Luo Fei's ability X would need to reach the stage where he could interfere and at the same time, rely on his eating to prevent Mars' blade aura from coming into play. To have to face against such a monster, everyone had better ponder through carefully. It was just that right after, for the Asura battle team, taking revenge had become their pivotal point. The final decisive team battle had started. During the 10-minute preparation break period, the entire venue's atmosphere was abnormally odd. The strength that Luo Fei had displayed was unconventional. The formidable Mars had actually been beaten to the point where he had no strength to fight back. Was Luo Fei very lazy? In actuality, the time that he had was only spent on three things: eating, sleeping, and training. He was never disrupted by all the other superficial enticements in life. He was the most devoted person. All the major battle teams were discussing their strategies on dealing with such a troublesome opponent. The crucial point was that they had never experienced it personally, making it difficult to find a countering method. What did that sort of eating strength feel like? What were the advantages and disadvantages of the ability? Everyone was aware that at Sig's level, the abilities there were real, but no one had expected that for the Dynasty battle team to be the first to erupt. If Luo Fei had displayed such strength earlier, it would not be possible to determine who would have become the greatest kings. Luo Fei was still the same as usual. He did not feel that he himself had changed. He was extremely conflicted as he was scared of trouble. He was constantly resisting it as he did not like the other him. He even wanted to have that soul locked up. It was just that when Lear made a request, the cage would be opened. For Luo Fei, being formidable meant nothing. This was something that originated from within his personality and the pressure from Lear. Lear was his friend, benefactor, and also his bane. He was vicious and merciless. He was especially cruel towards Luo Fei. It could be counted as Luo Fei's luck that he had yet to die from it. Then there was also Luo Fei's family, to whom everything was given by Lear. It could be heaven, but it could also be hell. Luo Fei himself was never a firm person, and with the addition of many complicated elements, it thus resulted in today's situation. No matter what it was, in this world, only Lear genuinely needed him, and he had become accustomed to living such a life. As to whether Lear had done it intentionally or unknowingly, no one knew. Not a single facial expression could be detected from Lear's face, giving people a profoundly mysterious feeling. At least no one dared to look down on the Dynasty battle team ever again. The team battle had begun. It was an absolute certainty that Mars would not be able to enter battle. Olivius led his Arbiter team members, all filled with wrath. They wanted revenge. It was a pity that they were up against Lear. Under normal circumstances, Lear would never allow others to be satisfied, he would only satisfy himself. Luo Fei had chosen the Wind God, whilst Lear led Peng Tong and Anluda to surround Olivius. Lear had not intended to determine the outcome of the battle, he just wanted to occupy Olivius, and there was nothing Olivius could do. Besides, there were still two warriors with outstanding fighting abilities, and Subaru, who was responsible for supporting the others. The rest were left to Luo Fei to handle. Earth-rank warriors, especially those like Luo Fei, turned terrifying when they made use of scout battle tactics. Everyone could sense it. It was a complete massacre. Sweeney and the other three were completely unable to get rid of Luo Fei. It was Luo Fei who was finishing them off one by one on the other end. The Wind God's motor strength was able to be displayed without restraint. Sweeney's mind finally calmed down. She finally understood that what they needed to do at this moment was to help Olivius break through the human barrier. Whether it was her or Olivius, they were all too rash. Their thoughts had been filled with revenge. Sweeney teleported straight away, forcefully opening up the distance between her and the Wind God. The current fatty was no longer the one at school. The Wind God was not the slightest bit anxious as it made use of its magnetic source to fly out one jump after another. Although the Reaper's speed was fast, the Wind God's magnetic source system was even stronger. Invisibility. Sweeney executed her ultimate move and the Reaper escaped at increasing speed. However, at that moment of disappearing, she suddenly felt her entire body losing energy. Upon raising her head, she saw the Wind God, with a kick, boom. It was caught by the magnetic force and with a teleportation, roundhouse kick. The Wind God, who had appeared in midair, delivered a roundhouse kick right at the Reaper's head. In that moment, Sweeney did not even move. Although her body had weakened after being hit, she still stayed invisible. This was her ability, but she had still underestimated the judgment of an Earth-rank warrior. It was not the first time Luo Fei had encountered the invisibility ability. Fatty could instinctively determine the orientation, and in an instant, he had weakened her in her state of invisibility. The key was that his moves were executed in one go, impeccably perfectly. The complete wipeout of the rest of the members signaled the Dynasty Battle Team's offense clarion. From the moment that Mars had been defeated, the Asura Battle Team had collapsed. The toughness of the Arbiters should not be overestimated. As long as they were humans, they would have weaknesses and limits. The more arrogant and the more honor they carried, the more it would be as such. People could only be unrivaled if they had reached the point of lowliness. This was Lear's best corroboration. You will be tough if you have no desires, that was said by Luo Fei. He had just completed the task that Lear had handed to him in the most effective way, without any distractions and any specific strategies. The Asura Battle Team, which had high hopes placed upon them before the match, had been defeated in the battle between the top 16. The Dynasty Battle Team had staged a huge reversal. This battle had established a fatty named Luo Fei. He was absolutely the most compelling contender for this year's SIG's strongest scout. After the match, Lear was surrounded by the relevant media. On the side of Aslan's Royal College, they were especially filled with curiosity with regards to Luo Fei. Of course, that also included Lear, who was the captain. Aslan was always interested when it came to people who had defeated Arbiter people. Luo Fei did not accept any interviews as he had already gone back. The honor was solely Lear's. Lear calmly and gracefully dealt with all sorts of questions. This was all a tactical arrangement, but, of course, he felt that Asura's defeat had originated from underestimating the enemy. Anything could have been possible. In the dormitory, a strange sound came out from Luo Fei's room. Luo Fei was rolling around the floor in great pain at this moment. His entire body emitted a red glow while his blue veins violently emerged. His whole person was like a swelling balloon, and his chubby face had changed beyond recognition. Energy flow, resembling worms tunneling throughout his body, could be seen by the naked eye, and he was even emitting some strange sounds. His ability X was indeed formidable. It could fearlessly eat, but such vital energy and mental strength could not be easily digested. It would be easy if the victim were an average-level warrior, but warriors like Mars were an entirely different concept. Whether it was the vital energy from the heavenly overlord attack or Mars' mental strength, they were unique. Even if they were removed from the original body, they would not change forms. Both of them were originally of the same rank, so Luo Fei would not be able to consume it. It was like doing a blood transfusion using blood of a different type. There would not be any immediate reaction upon entering within Luo Fei's body, but once it had been fermented for a period of time, it would erupt thoroughly. Luo Fei's hands grasped onto the table leg, dragging himself over little by little. He bit down on the table's leg. He must not produce any sound. At the moment, he also did not know how to solve it, because ever since his strength had been awakened, he had never met an opponent like Mars. Maybe it would be best to immediately head to the hospital, but the best choice was usually never the option that could be done. Luo Fei gradually lost consciousness, and in a haze, he seemed to have seen Lear return. Lear had indeed returned. The interview time was not too long, but he had quite an abundant harvest. He also had a few things that he wanted to understand. He did not expect Luo Fei's Aries art to actually have an unusual change, which could possibly provide a pretty good experience. Seeing Luo Fei's appearance, Lear was not very surprised. It would, of course, be a better choice to send him to the hospital. After all, it had been vital energy of the same rank, how could it just be consumed so easily? It was impossible to transfer the energy. Once it entered the body, it would inevitably wreck the body. However, even if they were to go to the hospital, this was not the time. This was the disadvantage of this ability. The method was simple. Lear gave him a kick, causing Luo Fei to lose consciousness completely. It was just that Mars' mental strength and vital energy were still damaging Luo Fei's body. Sitting on the side, Lear was taking into consideration the battle of the top 8. There should still be enough time. It was just that it would feel a bit long for Luo Fei. In the afternoon, the 0 Degrees battle team led by Ai Zhengyang had also successfully achieved victory. The Hail Cloud Alliance's capabilities were publicly acknowledged, and no chance was given to the opponent as the final score came up to 4-1. They were still relatively stable. It was only that this was not what everyone was paying attention to. At night, within all their rooms, everyone was studying the Dynasty Battle Team and the Asura Battle Team's video. Saruman Snake, as the more well-known team, had also not expected such an outcome. If they were to unluckily encounter Dynasty Battle Team, how should they resolve this issue of Luo Fei? His weakening and eating ability could simply control any aggressive offense. This was the most typical show of using a soft approach to control the tough. He had already reached the pinnacle, yet someone like him still had a wretched battle tactic where he did not confront the enemy head-on. It was hard to find someone so wretched even after having reached such levels. The pressure on Zhang Shan was extremely huge. He used to think that he was about the same as Luo Fei, but upon seeing Luo Fei's true ability, his head started to hurt. It was not just a question about the ability 10th world, but also about skills. He himself specialized in teleportation, and not just merely at the level of the movement from the box. But how had Luo Fei of such an offense method and with such a fluent flow? The videotape had been obtained by Ai Xiaolu in the first minute. All the major battle teams were studying Luo Fei, while everything on Lear had become fleeting. This fatty's fighting skills were relatively valiant. Everyone had completely been cheated by his outer appearance. The Wind God's continuous pursuit in offense, including that fatal roundhouse kick, had all been executed in one go. It was simply the prime example of a textbook attack. Wang Zheng, why do I feel that there is something wrong here? Zhang Shan bit his fingers. After meticulously looking, he discovered what the problem had been. Everyone was stunned for a moment. I feel that Sweeney's reaction was a bit slow. Even if she had been hit by the weakening ability, it could not be to the extent that there would be no reaction at all. Achilles also wrinkled his eyebrows. Maybe it was his ability X. It's a pity that we have not experienced it. We do not know how to handle it. Luo Fei's type of ability could also suppress Achilles, who did not know how to defend himself against eating at all. Even the strong, forceful offense of Mars had been weakened to the point of being dissolved and slowly eaten away. What about the rest then? Perhaps only an even more unique ability could prevail with a surprise move, not allowing him to have the chance to display his strength. Or perhaps they could rely on the sniper to deliver a blow, allowing them to strike first and gain the advantage. The problem was that this fatty's fighting skills were formidable and he was wretched as well, unlike Mars, who was very firm. Fatty had also never felt that he needed some expert demeanor, simply leaving him invulnerable. Wang Zheng watched it again. He did not do a roundhouse kick after he teleported. Look, after the magnetic source arrived, and he took a step. In midair, the mech already had a turning force. This was a roundhouse kick followed by teleportation. In that moment of his appearance, his actions followed through habitually. As such, Sweeney could not react in time. Upon hearing Wang Zheng say that, everyone discovered the small detail in between. It was a completely powerfully controlled execution. In that moment of appearance, it was like a tightened bow that made an explosive shot in an instant. Zhang Shan himself felt that his research on the Wind God was very thorough, but this move had blinded his alloy dog eyes. Naturally, this was only the comprehension of his fighting skills and techniques. The problem that remained was still with regards to Fatty's eating. That was the crux. No one would be able to stand having their mental strength eaten away. It was not just mental strength. Look at how Mars' Heavenly Overlord attack weakened after being enveloped by Luo Fei's ability X. His weakening ability had already started, which means that Luo Fei was eating the mental strength directly. There was no contact needed. I fear that it can also suppress fighting skills, Lai Xin stated. Actually, you guys don't need to be too worried. Putting the matter of encountering them aside, abilities are frightening only when they are unknown. Since he has already exposed himself, he certainly could be countered against. Ai Xiaolu mentioned, I will further investigate on the specifics, to see if there are any similar abilities, as well as the method to break it. Ai Xiaolu was obviously not referring to SIG, but Aishi Financial Group's related information on abilities. Any ability that had appeared for the first time would seem invincible, but in actuality, those that had been deemed invincible had all been taken down. Only the unknown could be unrivaled. The more troublesome issue was that Luo Fei was only a scout and not the captain. The key was with what was happening with Lear. Had the two of them been acting dumb together? Or was it just Luo Fei? People like Wang Zheng, who had battle experience, would be curious. There were always two sides to any ability. There was no such thing as an unrivaled ability in the world, there was only even stronger strength. The more unique an ability was, the more attractive it was. In actuality, the best method would be to exchange notes with Mars. It was just that the situation now was not suitable for it. Wang Zheng and the rest did actually get along with Luo Fei. There were only a few of them who had come out of the solar system. He had a genuine temperament, but from the looks of the final attack, where he had placed killing Mars as his motive, Luo Fei ultimately was biased towards Lear. The genuinely frightening enemies were never the formidable ones, the ones that were high above, but those who could not be dispersed. In the battle of the top 16, the opponent Saruman Snake would face off were the Dark Knight battle team of the Darkness Empire. Many people were investigating the follow-up of Luo Fei yesterday, but without avail. Luo Fei was usually mysterious. Generally, such prominence could only be credited to Wang Zheng. Yet, Luo Fei's sudden rise to such prominence was indeed the most celebrated. The ordinary members were very curious. Luo Fei was nowhere to be found in a time where he should lead the charge. Luo Fei did not even appear in the audience. The Dynasty battle team were also expressionless. Many people suspected that Luo Fei was injured and was being treated in the hospital. However, Luo Fei's name was not on the treatment list provided by the SIG. Some people also investigated other surrounding hospitals. In order to protect Luo Fei's ability, Lear may have transferred him elsewhere. But this was not the case. Which meant that Luo Fei was still in his room. Zhou Yun and the others had already lost their usual composure. Lear was still his usual self. Zhou Yun and the others had gone to look for Luo Fei. They felt it was time to change their attitudes and showed their loyalty. However, what they saw was how Luo Fei was being treated by Lear. This very person who had made a great contribution to the Dynasty battle team was treated like a dog, kicked aside by Lear. The only reason that he was unable to go to the hospital was to ensure his secrets would not be exposed. Yet Lear intentionally showed this to the trio, including Zhou Yun. He wanted to teach this trio a lesson. If they were not his friends, they would be his enemies, to say the least. The three of them finally understood that their so-called supplant was just child's play. Lear was a bona fide ruthless person. He would prefer it if everyone was betrayed by him, instead of him being betrayed by everyone. That was the reason why he was the candidate for the Son of Saint instead if the others wanted to withdraw. That would make you an enemy because you already knew too much. Likewise, to serve Lear, you needed to be useful. Otherwise, you would be disposed of. Luo Fei had served under Lear for the longest time. Zhou Yun and the rest used to think that Lear was sentimental. The three felt that everything was subverted at that moment. Especially when Lear had kicked him out with determination and without hesitation. Under such circumstances, if Luo Fei was unable to withstand it, he would surely have gone demented. Death would have been better. It would have been a living hell. Satisfying Lear was the only goal in Luo Fei's mind going to the second stage. That was why he couldn't care less about the consequences. This approach of swallowing would eventually kill him. Lear had not done anything, yet Zhou Yun and the rest were already very obedient. They needed to prove their worth to Lear. Otherwise, unless Lear was dead, they would have a tough time in the Saint sect. A rebel would not deserve a good end. The Dark Knight battle team led by Gonzalez was also one of the top 10 battle teams. The rise of the Darkness Empire was amazing. They had also received much attention in this competition. But all the captains knew that Gonzalez had lost to Wang Zheng with his tail tucked between his legs. But the people of Darkness Empire did not care. The spoils go to the victor, such a simple principle. Saruman Snake, Wang Zheng, Achilles, Lai Xin, and Snow Li. Dark Knight, Gonzalez, Matana, Dow's, Leland, Sherman. Not to mention Ghost King Gonzalez. Words about his battle with Wang Zheng at the qualifier did not spread. As captains, none of them were gossipers. Besides, there was still a vast difference between a qualifying match and the actual match. However, looking at the lineup of Saruman Snake, Wang Zheng would play a key role in the team. Together with the all-rounded Achilles, with his state and ability to see the overall situation, especially his cool-headedness. As the vice captain, he was genuinely at the core of the command, making it a problem for all. The tank Mu Jung was already a mainstay of SIG, having lost his position to Vincent and benched for a long time. The scout positions were filled by Zhang Shan and Lai Xin. The sniper position was the only position that was a little vulnerable. It was filled by the genius girl, Snow Lee, who had not had enough opportunities to demonstrate her skills. This position was not really required according to Saruman Snake's current style. But tactics were just tactics. In truth, no matter the combat style, the eventual winner would be the one who played to the extreme. Compatibility was the best. Saruman Snake truly possessed this aura now. Gonzalez and the rest had noticeably prepared long and hard for this, investigating every member of Saruman Snake. When facing Saruman Snake, do not be pretentious, no one was qualified to be. The first round was of utmost importance. Battles of the forwards generally determined the course of the competition. Competitors from both teams entered the arena. Representing the Dark Knight battle team, Gonzalez. Everyone was stunned. It seemed passable on second thought. This was because no one was confident challenging Wang Zheng. Not everyone was ruthless. Most of the people competed for the sake of victory. Gonzalez, nonetheless, had a certain level of success against Achilles. Besides, Gonzalez had yet to reveal his ability X. A gravity ability was like Tiger Bomb, relying more on IQ. In a head-to-head confrontation, it would not be as lethal. At least Gonzalez did not care. However, representing Saruman Snake in the first round was Wang Zheng. Ai Xiaolu and Luo laughed happily. They guessed that Gonzalez would never be hard-nosed. There was no lack of antagonists, but there were only 5 people who dared to challenge Wang Zheng. Unlike Achilles, Wang Zheng was a warrior. He yearned for powerful battles, just as he yearned to battle Luo Fei, who was at the peak of his game. Wang Zheng would be less interested if this ability appeared from Lear. Even if Lear was strong, it would be repulsive. However, Wang Zheng would long for a gratifying battle if it appeared from Luo Fei. Not everyone would be fortunate enough to choose his own path. Therefore, it would give Wang Zheng great pleasure to be able to see such a matchup. Gonzalez's expression changed slightly. He did not expect this possibility. However, he still felt that Wang Zheng would seek stability. Yet they still met. His techniques were better than Wang Zheng's. This, Gonzalez was very confident of. However, Wang Zheng possessed some unusual techniques. But the techniques would be dented during mech battles, resulting in the battle of ability X's. Wang Zheng's techniques were not outstanding. The primary objective in the 5 elements, fire, ice, and wind, as well as compound ability, was to increase lethality. It would not be as difficult to defend as Luo Fei and Di Maria's ability X's, which were also hard battle types. Honestly, what Wang Zheng was skilled at had been scrutinized by many people. He would rely on the landslide and the revolving shovel as his main winning technique. The ice-fire combo was his greatest trump card. However, this ability required time. In other words, if his opponent did not allow him the time, or was able to seize the opportunity, the outcome would be completely different. A person was bound to break under constant scrutiny no matter how powerful they were. Some habits were unbeknownst to themselves, but not their enemies. The person who would know you most profoundly in this world would most definitely be your enemy. All the members of the big battle teams were present in this round. The reason laid on the fact that by watching Wang Zheng repeatedly, you would be able to feel his subtle movements and rhythms. You would then get used to those movement and rhythm and uncover the means to deal with him. After all, they were in the same grade. Of course, basically no one wanted to compete with Wang Zheng in physical technique. His single punch had devastated Chichin Nakai's finger technique. Truly chilling. However, a mech would definitely unable to exert such power. At Gonzalez's age and experience, being distracted would only last momentarily. He soon regained his composure and chose his mech, Ghost Warrior. In order to fight against Wang Zheng, there must be a determination to stare death in the eye and be resurrected. Gonzalez was a man of the world. He had to take a risk. He would have to use his experience that he had over Wang Zheng to finish him off. The Wind God. Storm Swordsman. Hercules. Storm Swordsman. Storm Swordsman. Gonzalez's trademark was his speed. Physical technique. Lion Thunder was definitely of little use here. The most critical factor was Gonzalez's ability X. Professional soldiers were better at keeping secrets, and the Ghost King was the most stable in this area. It was well known that Gonzalez was a very skillful at wielding a blade. The Ghost Warrior was also a special mech specially created by the Darkness Empire to facilitate swift blade maneuvers. The mech's alloy saber was made using the relatively rare 100 forging method. To include craftsmanship as part of the assembly of a mech seemed ridiculous in this day and age, but the effect was, in fact, quite amazing. The Ghost Warrior was also a state-of-the-art piece of equipment for the special forces of the Darkness Empire. Storm Swordsman, a mech from Earth. It was well known for a period of time because of the fusion of some gravity energy mines. However, ultimately, this mech was not as popular as the Wind God. Both the Storm Swordsman and the Wind God had a special characteristic: both were relatively fragile. The merit was both were both, although the Storm Swordsman was not as flexible as the Wind God, so it gradually faded off. However, the Ghost Warrior was different. This mech was a masterpiece of the Darkness Empire. After being tested on the battlefields, every aspect of its specs had been enhanced. Wang Jung chose this mech to compete against Gonzalez on saber and sword fight. Gonzalez was very worried initially. But when he saw Wang Jung's choice of mech, he breathed a sigh of relief. He was very fearful that Wang Jung would choose monsters like the Wind God or the Hercules. Honestly, he would not know how to deal with the situation, but the opponent had chosen the Storm Swordsman, a mech that he had used previously. So he was well aware of its advantages and disadvantages. The attack methods and patterns were his speciality. Wang Jung was courting his own death. What is the relationship between Wang Jung and Yi Zissou? Luo asked feebly. This guy would continue to advertise for OMG at every opportunity he got. There was a need to understand that the Ghost Warrior topped the ranking in the market as the #1 seller for this type of mech, and smashed the records of the Storm Swordsman in a few star domains. A childhood friend. Ai Xiaolu laughed. Luo's character was quite peculiar. Sometimes she was mature and composed like an old politician. Other times, she was like a child. This guy is dreadful, commented Luo deviously. He has wasted the youth of a talented, young girl. Ai Xiaolu smiled. Don't look at others through thy own eyes. Wang Jung did not disrespect his opponent. As one of the top 10 captains and a mature member of the Special Forces, he was definitely skillful. Combat skills could only represent part of his skills. Among his opponents, Gonzalez was the most composed, running unswervingly, without hesitation. This was not a question of reputation. It could be said to be cowardice or, from another point of view, this was a true warrior, understanding when to charge, when to retreat, when to fight for life. Using a similar type of mech was undoubtedly the best choice when dealing with such an enemy because it could not be restrained easily. Although it cannot be restrained easily, will Wang Jung's understanding in this respect be comparable with Gonzalez's? This guy's nickname is Ghost King, and he has a more thorough understanding of the Ghost Warrior, Di Maria said. Di Maria was feeling the pressure. The performances of the other students from Elite Academy X were increasingly stunning. As an Aslan person who was playing in this home match, he felt embarrassed, hoping that someone could trip. You can tell just by looking, said Chengkinzadeh. Having said that, look towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng was a blue-blooded Aslan person, exemplifying all the excellent qualities of an Aslan citizen. He could feel that Lin Feng was initially indifferent to this SIG, but subsequent to the performance of Wang Jung, Luo Fei, and the others, he began to gradually show interest. As the main talent identified for grooming by the military academy, he had once heard the principal mention Lin Feng unintentionally. This person would assist His Highness, Aina, who would lead Aslan to the peak of the Milky Way Alliance, in the future. After Wang Jung demonstrated such tyrannical strength, so did Luo Fei. Lin Feng had since taken a serious attitude in this SIG. No one knew what Lin Feng's expertise was, but one thing was for sure, neither Chengkinzadeh nor Di Maria could compete with him. Principal Lin Hong had proposed to allow him and Lin Feng to have a good fight. But his principal declined, on the grounds that he was afraid that he would lose his confidence. Sitting beside Lin Feng, Zade could feel a sense of satisfaction from Lin Feng's eyes. Who could withstand this kind of loneliness? The battlefield of the two mecha tactics were of little use to these two. It would be an intense battle between a swordsman and a knifeman. The ghost warrior revealed two forged blades, unpretentious. He knew what to do as they had fought in hand-to-hand combat before. The double blade flow was his trump card. The ghost warrior's strength was in offense, not in defense. Substitute attack with defense. As soon as the two opponents stood up, the ghost warrior attacked immediately. A professional soldier could adjust his situation more rapidly, and was effective at disrupting the rhythm of others. The double blades slashed ceaselessly, not affording the storm swordsman any room for retreat. The storm swordsman was very nimble, but he needed room to display this. This, the ghost warrior was very clear of. So he was using the double blade oppression, forcing Wang Zheng to fight him head-on. Wang Zheng was unruffled. The storm swordsman defended firmly. Although the double blades were ferocious, the pace at which Wang Zheng was moving was also not to be taken too lightly. Everyone was focused on Wang Zheng attacks, but no one had realized that to have gotten this far, Wang Zheng relied, to a large extent, on defense, and his pace was also crucial. Plum blossom steps, ever-changing, comprising countless varieties of changes. Pulling apart or closing in the distance completely would throw off the opponent, rendering them powerless to display their techniques. This was truly terrifying. This seemingly chaotic pace was the real essence, laying the foundation to Wang Zheng's invincibility. What seemed to be an attack that could have easily killed the storm swordsman did not achieve its expected result. Gonzalez's attacks were becoming increasingly awkward, not knowing what to do. It was evident that his strikes had yet to reach their full potential. As the storm swordsman conferred his sword, part of the power rebounded. Another strike, but it came out short, missing the mech. It was so close. It was a close shave. Once was accidental, repeatedly was fatal. Was this playing with fire? Obviously not. Gonzalez knew too well. It was similar to sparring with a lesser opponent. It was seemingly dangerous but was actually a good reaction. He was able to anticipate his opponent's attacking format, the slightest maneuver, either attack or defense. The variation could be anticipated within himself. Equally skilled in physical combat and sword fighting, this was a hard pill to swallow. Wang Zheng and Gonzalez had fought before. In his physical combat state, he could basically analyze the opponent's combat format and rhythm. Wang Zheng was different. He had no personal traits. He was usually the most difficult opponent to encounter. Gonzalez's double blades were just about to strike but were hit immediately by the storm swordsman. Surging, boom, the ghost warrior retreated violently. Gonzalez panted hard. He had used his full energy in the attack, but his opponent only needed 1/3 of his energy to defend against that. Physical exhaustion apart, this was a real mental blow. His confidence was definitely shaken, despite his reluctance. During the qualifier battle, he had already lost. Initially, he thought that it would make a difference with the addition of the mech. After all, with an additional gigantic piece of equipment, and some people would lose the feeling of freedom they had during physical combat. However, it was different for Wang Zheng. His control of a mech was as good as his physical combat, and his understanding was even better. There was no way he could win, even through a fierce battle. Not a chance. Silence filled the battleground. The ghost warrior's focus was on a quick and endless attack, but Gonzalez remained still. Unlike the audience, he was unable to see clearly. Not a murmur could be heard in the arena. In fact, everyone was staring at the storm swordsman. Like in a mentoring game, Wang Zheng was demonstrating how to deal with the ghost warrior's double blade flow. This made the ferocious unparalleled double blade flow seem particularly vulnerable. Li Feng and company kept watch on the storm swordsman's maneuvers. They could sense that there were many variations. In Lin Feng's mind, all the maneuvers that the storm swordsman had made had all been connected, forming a beautiful plum blossom trail. Seemingly only a few variations, but the variations were only superficial. Wang Zheng's steps were three-dimensional. There were two analytical methods in Aslan's battle techniques. One was two-dimensional, which was used by both nations to this day. The other was the three-dimensional tactics, which was researched by Aslan in the recent years. Seemingly, it had only a few variations, but the variations were only superficial. Wang Zheng's steps were three-dimensional. The level of difficulty was amazing, and what Wang Zheng had demonstrated today was the three-dimensional tactics. Lin Feng was delighted. Who was Wang Zheng? Lin Feng would not believe that Wang Zheng could have comprehended it himself. This was the fruit of wisdom of the Aslan Empire Research Institute. This would not be possible even through pure talent. This was the ultimate level in the pursuit of skill. Talent alone was not enough. It came with tenacious training. At Wang Zheng's age, it was amazing. Those who did not understand the three-dimensional tactics would never be able to understand the subtleties. This was what depressed Gonzalez, and it was driving him crazy. What he was feeling now was pressure, something that had not appeared in a long time. Bang! Gonzalez threw a blade. Hands clasped. The ghost warrior raised his arms. His ability X exploded instantly. He would lose hope in himself if this continued. This was the power of the earth rank. The remaining forged blade burned with a dark aura. Gonzalez belonged to the rare dark element, belonging to the 5 major elements. The storm swordsman's ability X also exploded completely. An ability X could be dealt with by a certain level of ability X, but Wang Zheng did not try to suppress his opponent purposefully. The blade's black aura appeared wavy, giving out an extremely dangerous sensation. This characteristic was rare, and was not something that the regular 5 elements could defend against. The storm swordsman had no obvious tendency. Typically, ability X would have shown signs of its attributes by now, be it wind, ice, fire, or a compound ability. But Wang Zheng kept his ability hidden. This was too tiresome. The ability to react required time. Facing a dark force, especially if the other party was still an unknown, the best option was to strike first. The ghost warrior's power was congregating continuously. Instead of expanding, the blade's strength was beginning to be restrained, desperately being compressed. It seemed that Gonzalez was setting up for a fatal blow. Of course, Wang Zheng may have been planning teleportation, frustrating the ghost warrior's packed blow. However, this was a dangerous move. The teleportation boxes definitely created many variables, but it would be dreadful to be too obsessed with this. The ghost warrior attacked convincingly, quietly. In an instant, the forged blade rushing towards the black lightning had reached its zenith. From the corner of his mouth, Gonzalez drew a cold smile, ghost shriek. With Storm Swordsman as the center, a black enclosure had descended, covering a 5-meter radius. It looked as if it was formed by countless spirits, with ear-piercing screams, shooting straight through to the soul. It was unstoppable. Wave after wave, it was way more brutal than Wang Zheng's Lion Thunder. Under the stimulation of these spiritual shackles, everything seemed to darken. Regardless of which element one possessed, the dark power was one of a kind. Intruding in an instant, a single shriek would kill the weak-minded instantly. Gonzalez's strength would be enhanced when a person died to this ability. 1/5 of the opponent's power would basically be absorbed. Gonzalez was nicknamed the Ghost King not because he was skilled at using the Ghost Warrior, but rather because of this devouring ability. Although unrespectable, it was brutally ruthless. Gonzalez dared not underestimate his opponent, Wang Zheng. Poised, the forged blade struck. Soul Eater shrieks. The black blade slammed like a hurricane, with ear-piercing shrieks booming. This dark element had the rare ability to possess the soul, rendering anyone defenseless. This was the key to Gonzalez becoming one of the top 10 captains. This was a skill meant for killing, not for sparring. Yet Wang Zheng, this idiot feigned excessively. The aura of the blade sealed off the air above. The surroundings were overcast by the wailings of the spirits. It was questionable if the teleportation box was useful at the moment, let alone moved. Rumble. With strength soaring violently, the shrieking sounded repulsive, even outside the halls. It felt as chilling as being possessed by ghosts. Dark element, a tendency similar to a human's negativity. It had nothing to do with good or evil. Yet it had the negative ability to kill, and was often the most effective at it. Demonstrating this strength at SIG was inappropriate, but if this could kill Wang Zheng and absorb 1/5 of his strength, Gonzalez was willing to take any punishments. Any rushing force could not be stopped. The storm swordsman held his ground even though the energy was spreading outwards. Not dodging, the energy shield wasn't being used either. This move was a direct attack on the pilot. Undiscerning pretense was fatal. Lear desperately wanted to say this. He wanted to stand up and sneer vigorously, but he remained quiet because he was dumbfounded. Even if Gonzalez's attack was based primarily on dark mental strength, what the hell was the blade's aura about? How was there no damage to the mech? Growl. The storm swordsman had an energy trajectory. Growl. Lightning curved. Teleportation. It was fatal to be distracted in front of Wang Zheng. The light of the sword struck. Growl. Gonzalez also used teleportation. This was the swiftest instinctive reflex. The ghost warrior disappeared. Gonzalez's ghost warrior reappeared 6 meters away, staggering. The back of the mech had been split apart, sparks flying. Wang Zheng smiled slightly. Truly a professional soldier. This reaction was really astonishing. His trajectory curved, then teleportation, followed by a sudden lunging stab, were still not quick enough, otherwise the ghost warrior would not have gotten out. The ability to fight would, in the end, transform into instinct. In the ever-changing battlefield, this was the ability that would save lives. Gonzalez frowned. The alarm inside his mech rang constantly. Although he had been slashed in the back and he was in danger, it was not fatal. He could escape during the qualifier, but he was unable to retreat here. He knew that most of the captains might have seen that, and most would have been mocking him, but this didn't matter. As a professional soldier, he had learned not to take things too seriously. Chichin Nakai had died because he was not observant. So his death was not unjustified. The ghost warrior's forged blade went crushing in squarely. The dark element energy burned like flames on the surface of the mech. It was at this moment that everyone detected a layer of faint golden shimmer on the surface of Gonzalez the storm swordsman. What was the power of this element? Such pure and brilliant hues have never been seen in either the minor 5 elements or the major 5 elements. In the cockpit, a military-grade injection had already been pierced into the neck. Gonzalez had always had the means to bring it in. In fact, the organizing committee did not even consider this possibility. This injection was very rare, so nobody expected it to be used during SIG. Yet, Gonzalez used it nonetheless. Gonzalez took this into consideration after the qualifying games. As luck would have it, he came up against the Saruman snakes again. The veins on the neck protruded. Gonzalez's pupils burned with dark light. A strange and stifling atmosphere cut through the air. An unstoppable surge of energy permeated, sending evil violent chill. However, Gonzalez's thoughts were unparalleledly clear. This was not those junks from the black market that would drive a person crazy upon use. A warrior needed the most imperturbable and effective thing. A strong body could sustain such mental outburst. The dark element had always been uncommon. The attacks that he had used previously had been more about the spirit-driven energy. Although the impact of the mental outburst was extensive, it lacked physical attacks. The PPO injection helped to elevate the situation. Wang Zheng could feel the sudden surge in his opponent's strength. It was strange. But this was obviously not the time to ponder this problem. The black flames were burning. The attacks had been furious and chilling. However, just like a ferocious dog that did not bite, the exaggerated strength displayed previously had now diminished. But the burning, black flame was in a different league altogether. Gonzalez knew which ability Wang Zheng employed to defend against his attacks, and effectively so. His dark element ability was virtually invincible because the conventional element could not defend against it. Even the best earth element within the 5 elements dwarfed in comparison to his ability. Boom. This was the true Ghost Warrior from Hell. Blade War erupted. The black aura of the blade split the air. Stabbing anything that was swept past felt like it had been cauterized, leaving a sea of charred black. In addition, the attacking trajectory was an unstable wave-like locus. The storm swordsman's trajectory traversed. Gonzalez's let out a cold sneer from the corner of his mouth. The storm swordsman's energy shield activated almost simultaneously. Growling, the blade's aura exploded, shattering into several shrapnel. One of the auras teared towards the storm swordsman. Upon hitting the energy shield, instantaneously penetrated through the energy shield. The storm swordsman leaned back but was swept aside, immediately eroding a part of the mech. Terrifyingly, that black section was still eroding away. The energy shield could not stop it. The power of the darkness had a strong phagocytic effect. This was similar to that of Luo Fei, but different at the same time. This power was the assimilation of instinct. This was the scorching, dark fire from hell. Display your true strength, Wang Zheng, unless you want to end it this way. Dance of the dark fire could not be eliminated through the physics. Demonstrate your true strength, Wang Zheng, unless you want to end it this way. Dance of the dark fire could not be eliminated through the physics. X ability could only be eliminated by X ability. This was the first principle of the X ability. Wang Zheng laughed. Of course, he was aware of this. But this was a rare opportunity to encounter such an opponent. He wanted to relish this valuable experience a little longer. The most invincible thing in the world was knowledge, also known as vision. Only when attacked would one realize what this power meant. Wang Hao was curious about being fully detached from the power of the minor 5 elements, but would not try lightly. After all, the power of the 5 elements were most essential elements to his practices and physique. Growling. That golden shimmer re-emerged on the storm swordsman again, and the grim hellfire tattered, disappearing into the golden shimmer. Gonzalez's pupils contracted rigidly. This was the second time he met an opponent with an X ability that could restrain him completely. The so-called restraint was actually relative, derived from the confrontation of the realm. But most of the strength, even if it was stronger than his, was not his match. This was the difference in the grade. Compound ability. The basic character could not be changed. It was still a low-level quality. Why? This was not Gonzalez's only doubt. It was also everyone's doubt. Had Wang Zheng's ability altered? Or was this his new technique? Growling, the storm swordsman returned to normal. The alloy sword opened up in a defensive posture, allowing Gonzalez to attack. This courage was like going against the gods, but no one was surprised. There was nothing this person named Wang Zheng would not dare to do, if he dared to utter derogatory words in the presence of Kashan. Gonzalez laughed. He did not believe that there was anyone in this world who could withstand the full power of the hellfire. Coagulated. The breath became heavier and more laborious. The skies seemed to turn darker. The ghost warrior burned all over. The forged blade drew a circle in the air. Under the shadows of the blade, Gonzalez held his hands tightly across his right shoulder. In an instant, a black energy caved in. Boom! The black flames burst into the skies. Dark soul decapitation. Boom! A black bolt of lightning blasted towards the storm swordsman as the forged blade struck. The spiritual power carried the dark energy in space like the blood of the undead, swallowing the storm swordsman. At this time, the alloy sword of the storm swordsman waved silently. A golden beam burst, and a golden wind wall appeared in front of the mech. The sighing wall. Boom! The vicious dark energy burst into a mist in front of the wind wall, barely damaging it. Yet the ghost warrior's forged blade had cut through the wind wall. This was Gonzalez's killer move. As a professional soldier, he needed to be prepared for the worst. Yet the storm swordsman's attack had started. Growl. Another attack ensued. Growl. Stabbing. Stabbing, stabbing, growl. The storm swordsman's attack was followed by a penetrating stab that completely split the ghost warrior apart. The space between the two mecha was battered beyond recognition by the dark energy. As for the storm swordsman, it remained radiant. Saruman Snake Win. Among the special forces, dark energy was undoubtedly the most respected. It was no weaker than the time and space abilities, including Luo Fei's devouring ability. These were all the best in class. Such power was, however, useless against Wang Zheng. What was this? It would definitely be an agony for anyone in the arena to be confronted with this dark element. They would have to be prepared to force the enemy to a corner and perish together. Yet Wang Zheng had defeated his opponent easily. Anyone with the basic theoretical knowledge of Ability X knew that the minor 5 elements would be unable to withstand the dark element. The spectator hall was overcast with an oppressive atmosphere. It was oppressive because they were competitors, and they needed to battle. But future opponents gave them a feeling of wanting to escape. What kind of power was this? This Wang Zheng was no longer the strongest of the strongest. He had improved again. Yes, he was improving continuously. This time nobody explained. Nobody uttered a word. Wang Zheng, of course, did not feel responsible to do so either. This was the only way to deal with the dark element if one had yet to fully comprehend the balance of the 5 elements. Gonzalez needed to strike first, to finish off his opponent. However, with the balance of the 5 elements, the minor 5 elements were an absolute circle, circulating exclusively around him. The dark element was the same, at least Gonzalez had not been overpowered thus far. The dark element was not totally unbeknownst to Wang Zheng. In the earlier years, the normalization technique was based on the major 5 elements: land, sea, fire, air and space. Of which, space comprised of light and darkness, and some even greater strength, very oppressive, like what Charcoal had said. Humans would not be able to ensure it, at least not in his current state. In order to be better in touch with the universe, one needed to master the foundation of the 5 elements, and constantly perfect the energy of the human body, otherwise, the obsession of the power of the universe would ultimately lead to desolation. Thus, the dark force bore no mysterious suppression on Wang Zheng. It could be said that he and Aslan had an ill-fated relationship. Having gained an understanding of the balance of the 5 elements propelled him to the next level. This was stronger than the breakthrough of individual ability. At the same time, it was also an enhancement of his foresight and state. He and Aslan truly had an ill-fated relationship. Having gained an understanding of the balance of the 5 elements, propelled him to the next level. This was stronger than the breakthrough of individual ability. At the same time, it was also an enhancement of his foresight and state. Wang Zheng and Gonzalez had been sent out, and both were in good shape. This meant that the team battle was in the preparations. However, the momentum favored Saruman Snake. Although Gonzalez was very strong indeed, and there is an endless stream of strength, he fell short in the end. But Gonzalez still could not understand how Wang Zheng had managed to thwart his attacks. After taking the lead, Saruman Snake focused on the lineup. Lai Xin was up in the second match. The Darkness Empire battle team did not give up. Although Gonzalez had lost, the captain was in excellent condition. The team battle could still exercise its strength. The Darkness Empire also wanted a fighting chance. However, a miracle did not happen in the second battle. Although Lai Xin was a woman, her domineering tyrannical fire technique was incredibly overbearing and overcame her opponent with ease. It was a closely contested battle. Unfortunately, the opponent's ability X was suppressed by the tyrannical fire technique. In terms of physical combat, as a descendant of the Lai family, Lai Xin, of course, would not be inferior to anyone. Saruman Snake won the second battle. When Wang Zheng was around, the entire Saruman Snake battle team seemed to be enveloped with an invincible force of confidence. It felt as if all the members of the team had an increase of 20% in fighting power, and the fortunes by 1%. On the other hand, the morale of the opponent was reduced, and so too were the fortunes. Wang Zheng had become a symbol of terror by now. Even the members of the Dark Knight battle team were not losing their confidence. Once they lost their belief, they would not be able to show tenacity in the battle. While preparing for the third match, the organizing committee intervened and took Gonzalez away. This was because he had taken illegal drugs during the match. While SIG would not deliberately check for contraband, it did not mean that it could be used, especially contrabands like PEDs. This contraband was used only during life and death situations. In reality, the Darkness Empire was a little foolish now, which was also the predicament that many empires were currently facing, and despite their desire, this problem was something that the Silver League was unable to manage. Saruman Snake effortlessly advanced to the last 16, appearing extremely easy. The opponent was terrorized once again in this battle. Despite Gonzalez's use of the PPO, he was still defeated by Wang Zheng. This was indeed strange. The battles for Day 2 had finished. The Arbiter Soulless battle team had advanced easily and indisputably. Arbiter was still powerful. However, every major team was reviewing Wang Zheng after the match. Reviews were necessary, otherwise, death would be imminent. When did this fellow have a breakthrough again? The reviews were simply unable to keep up. The golden wind wall was obviously not the power. If it was the power of the wind, the storm swordsman would have already been blown into shreds. Gold from the 5 elements. It could not withstand that either. Compound. Compound ability had always been used for attacks. Compound had nebulous indicators. This golden wind wall did not have any clear indication of its element. Was this a new category of ability? Trait type. This was a huge problem, and everyone was most fearful of this indiscernible power. Wang Zheng was accustomed to all this, and was unconcerned with them. This had made him stronger instead. While the manifestation could be displayed, the core had to remain a secret. The stronger the power, the easier it was to be restrained. Although he was not afraid, he had a normal sense of security nonetheless. Kashan was watching the recording in her hands while Mitchell, who was beside her, was presenting the information. Your Highness, this person's combat ability is among the best of the best, and he will definitely a contender for first place, said Mitchell candidly. Aslan evidently did not want Wang Zheng to be crowned champion. It was impossible for Wang Zheng not to draw their attention since the qualifying matches. Dealing with this was indeed a problem. It was also tricky to deal with Princess Aina. The rules had been fixed and everyone had to follow those rules. If Kashan broke the rules, Aina was also not one to be trifled with. However, if Wang Zheng were to be crowned champion, it would prove to be a greater setback. No matter how strong he was still a warrior. In fact, the stronger they were, the less likable they were. This type of person was suitable to be the captain of special forces. However, it was pointless because this would drive the difference in status between a warrior and a princess even farther. It was at the finals yet. Let's wait and see, said Kashan. Your Highness, this is still dangerous. What if? Mitchell said worriedly after considering all the opinions of the others. This Saruman snake could likely advance to the finals. This was too dangerous. Kashan smiled, and Mitchell stopped talking. She knew Her Highness had already formed her opinion. Whenever he saw this smile, he knew that no one could escape from Kashan's hands. No matter who they were. Having effortlessly advanced to the top 16, Zhongshan and the others' moods were undoubtedly exceptional. They sat waiting for their competitors. With their experience in IG and their calmness, watching someone else's competition was a completely different sentiment, especially when watching the competitions of some of the powerful opponents. The top 16 was manageable. The next stage would basically not be too different. They could even encounter an old friend. Wang Zheng was in an excellent state. So too was the entire Saruman snake battle team. Although not unimpregnable, there was still a chance of winning no matter who they encountered. The factors outside the arena were even more worrying. Wang Zheng did not believe that the Prime Minister did not necessarily equate trustworthiness, especially for these sorts of people. Ai Xiaolu had also reminded him that the Saruman snake battle team be wary of Kashan's underhanded tricks. It was easier to be guarded against outright tricks than the underhanded ones. With the top 16 battles climaxing, the Gemini Gravity battle team was the third team to advance. It was a long and fierce process. The final teams battled for over an hour, only to win by a small margin. In comparison, Lady Luck was not smiling on the Imperial Glory battle team, led by Di Maria. Their opponent, the Tiantong Star battle team, advanced to the 4th round through sheer luck, cruising to a 3-0 win. The battle between the Astina Justice battle team and the Light of the Suns battle team was a battle of the Titans. The Astina Justine battle team was traditionally the stronger team. But the Light of the Suns battle team was a roadblock that every team was wary of. Even during the qualifying rounds, basically no one wanted to face the Atlanteans and the Mayans. Not because of any alliances, but rather because their assessing tactics were unusual. Oftentimes, they would sacrifice themselves heavily in order to win. There was no doubt that the Maya Empire was the real superpower. Of course, the opponent in this round was also a force to be reckoned with. Although the odds were stacked against the Astinians, there was still a chance of winning. Captain Ogun, 25 years of age, an Earth rank warrior. His ability X was rated at the highest level and he was also a power figure. Although not ranked as one of the top 10 captains, he was a force to be reckoned with. In round 1, the Astina Justice Battle team sent out the most reliable member for probing purposes. However, when the Mayans sent out their warriors, it angered Astina. Even the audience was shocked. What was this situation? Substitutes. Matt Locatelli sent out the substitutes despite facing the Astina Justice Battle team. Was this madness from Matt Locatelli, or was he being supercilious? Ogun was absolutely furious. The Light of the Sun's battle team. Did they think they had the ability to glow, or did they really think of themselves as sunshine? Sydney, show the Mayans the manners of a warrior. Looking across at the Mayans, Ogun, cold and still as stone, obviously did not think much about the Astinians. He had to admit that the Mayans were strong. However, when it came to one-on-one battles, the Mayans had no advantage. The energy-centered Maya's real power laid in team battles. Roar! Sydney pounded his chest, his eyes revealing a vicious fighting spirit. Sending the reserves against him. Light of the Suns. Not necessarily Sons of the Sun, it might just be the candles in the wind. Wang Jung was amongst the audience, watching the Light of the Sun's battle team, feeling somewhat awkward. There had to be some disparity between the Light of the Sun's battle team and the two Mayans beside Lear. The front seats for the contestants had emptied quite a bit. It was a rare sight for the losers to stay behind. After all, those who made it to the main competition were individuals who were prideful, and it would not be wrong to say that they were conceited. Failure meant departure. This was the natural law of humans. The Van brothers of Arbiter were the ultimate victims. They had had many glorious years, but they suffered an unprecedented defeat at SIG. This was reality, for the lack of any reason. Pressure from the family, the Arbiter Empire, and much more. Their lives had never been easy, and that was life. Wang Jung could only wish them luck. He was not faring any better either. The more Kashan did not make her move, the more cautious he needed to be. The only consolation was that Aina had more fighting spirit than before. After all, they were fighting together. The Dynasty Battle team were the hot favorites, but Luo Fei was not around. Ever since that last battle, Fatty Luo had not appeared again. It was rumored that he had been consumed by his ability and was no longer able to walk. But there was no concrete evidence to this rumor. Luo Fei's energy was not heaven rank. With the current level of his ability X, the way he was consuming would definitely have consequences, but to what end? His opponents would wish that Luo Fei would not stand up again. He was frightening. Even if there were consequences, it would only benefit others if he failed. It was quite a good fortune for many people, with Asura eliminated, and Lu Fei seriously injured. There was nothing to Asura. The people that followed were very fortunate. Round 1. Sydney came on, fully charged. The first rule of battle with the Mayans. Never compete with long-range firepower with the Mayans. The Astina battle team was roaring, cheering Sydney on. This was their style, a one-person team, the prayers of the team. Each time anyone came on, it carried the courage of the entire team. Substitutes. Go to hell. Battle was sacred, not be defiled. Sydney was clear that the key to winning was to get close to the opponent. Once they entered melee range, the Mayans were novice. But he was Blade. However, halfway through the charge, Sydney sensed that something was not right. The Mayans' Heavenly Crystal King was standing still, not moving at all, with no intention of stopping his approach. What was this? Some of the spectators were stunned too. Did it mean that the Mayans were hinting at a close-range battle? Dina Atlas gave a little smile. The Mayans were finally taking that move. Moving closer. The two mecha collided head-on. Sydney burst forward. After closing in, the explosive force of the mech was like a ferocious tiger. In his presence, the Heavenly Crystal King, with beautiful curves, was like a half-undressed woman. What needed defense was the Mayans' energy force field. It was not a problem for Sydney. What looked like flamboyant attacks may be deemed as a threat during IG, but for SIG, it merely looked good, like a wallpaper. The Heavenly Crystal King then made his move. Energy force field. Sydney was prepared. A counter-defense, and that would teach the Mayans the meaning of a warrior's pride, the human's version. But it was not an energy force field. Rather, an energy lightsaber was drawn. Bright lights flashed. The heavenly crystal king suddenly disappeared right before Sydney. Vanished right in front of everyone's sight. No. Not disappeared, but turned into bright lights. Distorted and active. Lights. In a flash, it passed through Sydney's mech. The heavenly crystal king then appeared again behind Sydney. The energy lightsaber made a maneuver. Decapitated. Silence filled the arena. What was this attack? The Atlanteans were known for their spiritual strength and runes, while the Mayans were known for the use of energy and light. Compared to the high acceptance of the rune power, the Mayan technology seemed to be only self-treasured. Every battle team from all nations were watching. Obviously, it was a headache for the technicians. They needed to grasp the key issue of the problem. They needed to break the code, otherwise, they would be suppressed. Round 2. Astina's momentum was not destabilized despite the loss in the first round. The Mayans have concealed themselves well. However, Sydney they have been exposed, they will not stand a second chance as Astinians. This power is nothing but the mere exploitation of lights and illusions. We had simulated the response methods during training. Menkeys, your power is best at dealing with this. Go thrash them. Ogun was a typical Astinian leader. No matter the situation, the momentum should not be lost. Motivation was needed even though he did not feel like he was convincing. However, it was useless. Menkeys tried his best. Second only to Ogun. He was already within the threshold of the Earth rank, he just needed one transformation. Facing the Heavenly Crystal King, his method was not too bad. However, he only lasted 2 attacks longer than Sydney. Facing an opponent that he could not defend as the opponent could suddenly turn into light, changing its tracks, failure was inevitable. 2-0. The Astina Justice battle team was standing on the edge of the cliff. Ogun stepped up. This was an Earth rank expert. Would the Mayans still send on the reserves? 2-0. Another win would take them straight to the next round, avoiding the team battles, which had too many variables. The most reliable scenario was for Matt Locatelli take on the challenge himself. However, Matt pointed to the person behind him. Still a reserve. Ogun was fuming mad. He was an Astinian, a blazing messenger, an Earth rank warrior. Reserves. Battle cries. Ogun was burning. But the audience was silent. The Earth rank expert merely lasted an additional 5 minutes. Ogun's ability X was a trait technique, puppet force field. It could create a mental suppression, even to the point of mind control. However, this was utterly useless against the Mayans. 5 minutes into the battle, entering into a frenzy mode, Ogun was utterly suppressed. In the last second of the 5 minutes, Ogun could not evade the eventual fate of decapitation. The timing was so accurate that one wondered if it was intentional. Silence, followed by many debates. Much research had been carried out on the Mayans, technology by the different countries. But none were as strong as this group of people. Matt Locatelli did not accept any interview after the competition. Whether it was disrespect or arrogance, it was of no consequence. The Mayans were displaying their power everywhere. Compared to Atlantis, who had enjoyed many glorious years, the Mayans' core technology was still a mystery to the humans. As the loser, Astina seemed despondent. Sometimes, advancing to the next round might not be a good thing. Losing like this was devastating. Their intelligence personnel had to bear the primary responsibility. There was complete lack of understanding of the Mayans' battle tactics and skills. Before the humans could find a solution, whether it was the first team or the reserves, the end results would be the same.